doing? Great. Awesome. You guys are so lucky to have a leader like Dr. Coleman. I was at UCLA, and a big topic of discussion now more than ever, I graduated about 10 years ago, is how do we take students from a great academic environment and put them in the real world? And a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is just my experience, my street learnings from being out there in the corporate world. I might be different than some of the other speakers you interact with because I'm just a little bit older than you guys, but I want to share all the things that I learned the hard way about building your life after college in the theme of the entire day that you all have programmed today, which is student work and how to be a stellar student worker. I just want to shout out again the Nevada State Student Government for bringing me on today. So let's go ahead and get started. I actually want to start off with an exercise. For those of you who have smartphones, if you could participate, I just want to ask, what questions do you have about life after college? Let me know if this QR code does not work. I will use your questions. I'm going to track them on my phone and bring them back up at the end of the session to facilitate a Q&A. So if we could just take maybe 2 or 3 minutes, I'm going to ask you, I think, 2 or 3 questions there. Feel free to continue with the survey. I'm going to continue this on. These are great, though. Thank you. All right, so topics for today. I'm going to give a brief introduction about what we're here today for, and then I'm going to go into my story and a little bit about my background and experience. And then we're going to get into the meat of the presentation, which is how to become a stellar student worker. And the reason why this matters, I think, for a lot of you is if you can use the next couple of years at NSC to really work on your skills and gain some experience and make the mistakes that you have to make to learn. Right now, when you're in the working world, as Dr. Coleman said, you're going to be a lot more ahead of your peers who spent all their time focusing on studying in the classroom and didn't think about life outside of the classroom. So you guys are going to be at a huge advantage if you're part of the student worker program. So by the end of this training, I want you to know how to make the most of your college experience by focusing on things outside of the classroom. I want you to be able to be a high-performing student worker. And by the way, not just for the sake of being a high-performing student worker, I can tell you from firsthand experience, you get paid more, you do more fun work, your managers start being less micromanaging on you, it's less stress, and you have a brighter future. And I'll tell my story of how I realized that during my career in my 20s. And then also we'll all leave with a crisp 30-second elevator pitch about our experiences that you can use when you're in an interview, when you're meeting someone. This is really a nice thing to have to make a stellar first impression, because every interview you're going to be in is going to start with, tell me about yourself, walk me through your resume. So if you know that question is coming in, why not nail it? And we're going to nail it together. Okay, so to start, that's me back in high school. I was a marching band nerd growing up, proud marching band nerd. I played the alto saxophone, and we had a 200-person marching band in high school. Any musicians here? Show of hands, couple. Awesome. Any marching band people here? Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Respect. And so I spent a lot of my high school not studying. I spent it playing music. I couldn't study for more than an hour on a test, just didn't care. And long story short, when I applied to my dream school, I didn't quite get in. But a couple of months after getting that rejection letter, there was a backdoor way for me to get into UCLA through the music program. So I actually got into the back door as a marching band appeal student, which, yes, it's actually a thing at UCLA. So based on my musical talents, I was able to still get into the university, which was a really cool experience, but it was a blessing and a curse at the same time. Imagine on your first day of school being surrounded by 35,000 other students who on paper are smarter than you and are more likely to succeed. Like, wow, was this a big mistake? Am I out of my league? And I really spent my entire freshman year grappling with that. I was struggling in school, I was, huddled up in the library, and I really thought of my life in college as me versus everyone else. And that mentality was not healthy. I was struggling in school, I wasn't making friends, and it was really challenging. I was like, I can't do 3 more years of this. So my freshman year summer, I was back home in NorCal where I'm from, and I really had an epiphany one night. I was just like, if I'm gonna go back to campus for another 3 years, how can I change my mindset? And I tried to experiment with, instead of me versus everyone else, what if I took advantage of everyone in the classroom, like the way that you all can take advantage of everyone here, and I tried to learn from everyone and try to leave UCLA a better person than I came in. And that mentality really changed the way that I spent time in school. Instead of freaking out about getting A's, I started joining student groups. I started doing group study sessions. I attended professor office hours, all for the purpose of learning from the people around me, though it might not be directly from a textbook. And that fundamentally changed my college experience. I was also the university's one of the first ice cream scoopers at the cafeteria. So I started getting more student work experience. I did unpaid internships, and I graduated with the Chancellor Service Award for leadership to the university because of all the student awards that I was able to lead. So that was kind of my journey at UCLA, being really, really outranked on the academics, but knowing that if I'm surrounded by smart people who know something that I don't, I can learn from them in some way. And that's a learning that I took with me into my career. And so basically after undergrad, I worked in consulting for about a couple years, helping businesses in the media space pivot to the streaming world. All of you have watched some kind of streaming, right? Netflix, Amazon, whatever. Back in 2012, 2011, when I was in my college years, people were still talking about doing that. Netflix was pretty much the only game in town with YouTube. And so people hired my consulting firm that I worked for to advise them on how to do that. After consulting, I went to Discovery Channel for about 18 months, and then after Discovery Channel, I ended up at Netflix, where I work today as part of the marketing strategy and social media team for our original series. And I'm hitting 5 years in March, so it'll be pretty soon that I've been at Netflix. And so I've had a really fun day job that I'm happy to talk to you about. But I think the point is, in addition to that, I'm able to do speaking at universities, and I love traveling across the country, sharing what I've learned. I also have a career coaching business for college students with my brother called the Career Launchpad, because I'm really passionate about what I do here. And lastly, I serve on the board of UCLA as vice president of our board of directors for the Alumni Association. So I love giving back to campus, and I love talking about campus issues the way that Dr. Coleman did today with regards to all the things that are top of mind for you as students, like, hey, what's life after college? Am I still gonna keep my friends? Am I still gonna, do I need to take a gap year? All these questions that you guys have. I love to think about those things and help students do it from a more administrative role. So that's my career, my professional life in a really quick nutshell. There's a lot more lessons that I want to share with you along the way, but hopefully that story helps get to know me and gives you some faith that all these things that I'm going to talk about today come from actual experience and not just out of the sky. Okay, so let's do this exercise that didn't quite work out on PDF, but we'll go ahead and try it anyway. Why is student work important? This is a realization that I had my junior year when I was writing my resume, and I was like, oh crap, the GPA is just one number on a resume. So let's look on the left-hand side, and when you were in high school and before, you can see this resume is divided into a couple sections: education, experience, leadership, and activities and interests. Pretty basic resume. But before you got to NSC, you were told to stay in school and get good grades, and everything else would take care of itself. So you spent 80% of your time on your education, and the extra stuff that you did, marching band, whatever, that was extracurricular. And so you probably didn't spend much time on it. But now when you go to write a resume, it's flipped, right? Your GPA is just one number. It's important. The way that you excel in the classroom is important. But so much of what else is on the resume is your experience, your leadership, and your activities. And those are things that students just don't get until they write a resume. And typically for a lot of students, that's not until their senior year. They're like, oh crap, I missed out. So what I want to communicate in this slide is that getting work experience, doing student leadership activities, things like that, that's actually going to be how employers look at your candidacy. It's not going to be all about the school that you went to and the grades that you got. Which, I don't know about any of you, but for me that was a huge sigh of relief, because I could do a group project, I could do something with business, but you tell me to fill out a Scantron, it doesn't work for me. So for those of you who are not into taking tests and being all about academics, this should be a really good sign that there's a lot more that you can do to enrich your college experience. Any questions about this or how it shows up in the working world? It's a really fundamental concept to why we're here today, why all of you are really excellent students for volunteering to kind of be part of this program, because it's not something you have to do, but it's something that I think will set yourself apart. Okay, so a couple of questions, just feel free to yell out. What are some career paths for some of you that you think you're interested in after graduating? I heard nursing, one, from the Google form. What else? Politics? Just yell out.
Marketing.
Marketing? Cool. Anything? Even if it's a guess.
An athletic director.
Sorry?
Athletic director.
Athletic director, cool. Any, have we had marketing, athletic director, any finance or accounting people here? No, don't blame you. Any teachers? Okay, great. Okay, so we have a smattering of folks, and what I would say is even if you don't know what you want to do, which is totally fine, I still grapple with it time to time. The topics that we're going to talk about today are going to be relevant for you. So even though we might see images of a boardroom or we might see images of whatever, I understand that if you want to be a teacher or a nurse, that might not be directly relevant to you, but the skills that we're talking about here are still going to set yourself apart for a more rewarding career, which is going to take up the majority of your life for most people. So why not have fun with it? Okay, so let's talk about becoming a stellar student worker. There's 3 things that I want to communicate today. The first one is developing a CEO mindset. And again, even if you want to be a nurse or in politics or a teacher, this kind of mindset will really help you set yourself apart. Number 2 is mastering your personal brand. We're going to talk about that and who does it well. And then I'm going to show you how to advocate for yourself through storytelling, which is that 30-second elevator pitch. So let's talk about the first one. So the key concept with developing a CEO mindset is something called the principal-agent problem. Has anyone heard of this before? It's a psychological term. It's a fancy term, but let's focus on the left-hand side. It's basically this idea that the biggest tension in any organization, whether it's at NSC or Starbucks or Netflix, the tension exists because there's different incentives between the people who actually own the business and the people who actually do the work. And that tension is what causes a lot of really funny behavior. So business owners are always incentivized to do what's best for the organization, right? They own the business, but employees typically do what's best for them, even if it means it's bad for the business. This could be as simple as, maybe not working as hard, or maybe, for example, you're in a very rough culture and your boss is kind of, you don't have the best culture to be around, and so you're not going to innovate and suggest new ways of doing things. You're really worried about your job security. So you're just going to keep your head down and work. But that's actually not good for the business, because if you're a young talent like you are, you're all full of fresh ideas, as a business owner, you should want to cultivate those ideas. So this difference in incentives between being an employee and being a business owner is fundamentally what creates this problem that every company has to deal with. So what does that mean for you? It means as student workers, as entry-level employees, as mentees, if you behave like a CEO, if you think about how would my manager want me to behave, how would the head of my organization or even the head of NSC want me to behave and represent the campus, that can set yourself apart, and it will also help you have better judgment. And the way I want to do this is by telling you a quick story. So at Netflix here, look at this picture over here. We have something called tech grab cabinets. Tech grab cabinets. They're on every floor of the office, and they're in every office in the world. And basically, it's where you get your peripherals, your iPhone chargers, your headphones, your Apple keyboard and mice and all that. And this is just a cabinet. I can just walk in and grab what I need and close the cabinet and leave. Pretty cool, right? Now, in most companies, they don't have this. You'd be like, go get your own stuff. Or if they did have it, you have to walk up to an IT department, place an order form, they associate your employee ID number with it, and blah, blah, blah. At Netflix, you just take it and go. And what our CEO does is, if you look at this bigger image here, you probably can't see in the back, but there's actually prices here. So when employees take out a cable or an Apple Magic Mouse, they see that it's $100 for the company, but it's a privilege for the employee. And that culture is what's really cool about the principal-agent problem, because here is our CEO, Reed Hastings, saying, my goal was to make employees feel like owners and in turn increase the amount of responsibility they took for the company's success. So while in most places, I'm sure this tech grab cabinet wouldn't last a second on the strip, right? If it just was open for anyone to take. But at Netflix, it's a program that works really well. And we don't even have an expense policy at our office. We have 10,000 employees, no expense policy. The expense policy is literally do what's best for the business. So luckily at Netflix, we've been able to cultivate that kind of culture. And I guess my message for all of you, because not all of us works at a place like Netflix, is how can you cultivate that for yourself? And we'll talk about this when we talk about your personal brand. But just understand that this principal-agent problem, if you talk to Dr. Coleman, or you talk to the head of your organization, your mentors, chances are they would like for you to behave a certain way, but you're not doing that because you're incentivized to do something else. And that's okay. Just recognize that tension exists. You have a lot of things going on in life. You have your family, your friends, your school, and then student work. And your mentor is just doing this job 9 to 5, right? So they can focus on this full time. That's, again, a difference of incentives. So just calling it out and recognizing it, I think, is the first step to really thinking like a CEO and figuring out how you can act more like a business owner and less like an employee. Any questions about this one? It's a really cool idea. Okay, so here's how to actually put it in place. I'm going to give you some mental models so that you can use to think like a CEO on the job. What are mental models? Mental models are just quick tricks you can use, ways of thinking to get you out of difficult situations. So the next time you're at your student work or job and you have a difficult situation and you're thinking about how you can be a better performer, here are some things to think about. The first one is from a career mentor of mine, Victor Chang. He says, do what is needed, not what is asked. A lot of you are asked to do certain things as part of your job. Your mentor might ask you to do certain things, but think about what is actually needed. It might be something different. It might be something more and above and beyond what that is. And that's the fastest way to get promoted, by the way, is doing what is needed, not just what is asked. The second thing is, don't go to your manager with problems. Go to them with potential solutions. You know, CEOs aren't allowed to say, I don't know what to do, somebody help. What's typically best is if you catch yourself in a really tricky situation on the job, whether it's at a front desk or academic advising or whatever, at an equipment center, if you come across a problem, think about 2 or 3 ways you could solve that problem, even if none of them are attractive ways of solving it, and then go to your mentor with those solutions and say, hey, what do you think I should do here? A, B, or C? I think I should do B, but what do you think? Just that small step to kind of give them a bevy of options to choose from will make yourself seem a lot more mature in their eyes rather than always going to them with, hey, something happened at work, what do I do? So just make that extra effort and it'll really change the way that people perceive you. The third one is also a good life lesson. If you have to decide between 2 options, choose the one that's better for your organization in the long run and worse for you in the short run. This one's really hard, but for those of you that choose to go down this path of building a career, this is what sets people apart from their peers. It's making these decisions that look funny from the outside because Sahil's doing something that's against his own interests, but it's for the benefit of the broader organization. And that's what leadership is all about. Naval Ravikant, one of my favorite authors, you guys can look him up. I'll give you this presentation at the end, by the way, so you'll have it. Great author to look up. He has a great saying, easy choices, hard life, easy choices. So, or hard choices, easy life. Sorry, I butchered that. So, the essence of it is, if you make the difficult decisions today, you're going to have an easy life ahead. If you take the easy route today, you're going to have a hard life ahead. So choose wisely. The next mental model is about thinking about the second or third wave consequences of how you decide to behave. So, for example, let's say you decide to take on a new project, or you want to spearhead something, or there's a conflict. Think about the second or third wave, like implications of what that decision might cause. And who else will be impacted? Let's say you're doing freshman orientation and you want to innovate a new route of showing NSC's campus that's faster or easier for you to do for the incoming students. And that new route just so happens to circumvent the student center. I'm making this up. So you're going to skip showing the student center to new students. How might that impact other organizations? Obviously, you have your own incentives. You want to get through the entire thing faster. You want to give students a better experience. By them not seeing the center, how can that impact how the center feels about your orientation program? Very theoretical example, but that's how CEOs think. They think very cross-functionally. How do my behavior and actions impact other teams and other people? And think about what might be some negative, unintended consequences of your actions. It's basically this what-if thinking, and thinking in probabilities. You know, there's a certain % chance this might happen, a certain % chance that might happen. Things aren't very clear, like this for sure will happen or this for sure won't happen. So CEOs think in probabilities. And lastly, and this is something that you guys can do right now, is take stock of the 20% of things that typically drive 80% of the impact and the workplace success that you have in your current job. I'm sure there's a handful of things that you guys do day to day that really drive most of the impact. And the other stuff is just noise that sometimes you have to do because it's part of the job. It could be filing papers or whatever. But just recognizing the stuff that's really important and doubling down on that is a really good productivity tip for really maximizing your time. So these are some mental models. Again, you'll have this sheet to reference, but anytime you find yourself in a tricky situation at work, it's always helpful to refer to some of these things. I want you to think about a recent situation in your student work that was difficult to deal with, either recently or in the past. If you don't have one, that's okay, but we're going to find a partner, someone to your left or to your right, and explain to them the situation, what was difficult, how you chose to deal with it, and what was the end result. And now explain to your partner and brainstorm together, how do you think your manager, your supervisor, your mentor, or even the head of your organization, how would they have handled that situation differently given the principal agent problem we talked about? and how would they have chose to deal with it. So I want you to find a partner, talk about this theoretical, then we're going to come back and share for a little bit. So why don't we go ahead and take a couple minutes. Just wanted to ask, maybe you can pick one of your three partners. What was the situation? How did you deal with it? And how do you think your manager would have dealt with it as a difference?
So for me, I work for Career Services Center, and I am specifically in charge of marketing to students. So in one of the, because of that, I have to work with my supervisors to make sure that everything is going out where it needs to go so that our students can see it, because we have to do a lot of events that are career related. So it's really important to get that out there. And all of my pro staff, they're amazing. They have a lot of stuff to do, I have to admit. So it was getting really tedious just trying to make sure that we were in constant communication to make sure stuff was going out on time. So I kind of just set myself up with like a plan and a schedule, and I would go and update them with things that were going on. So that way I wasn't constantly going up to them and saying, okay, what do I do next? So I kind of just took it upon myself to find a way to organize it and make sure that I was on top of it, so that way we were all like getting it all done and together,
Yeah, that's great. And so in that case, for those of you who didn't hear, like she took the initiative to kind of build a list on your own of things that you're working on and kind of be very self-starter. Is that different than you think your manager would have wanted to do it, or do you think that they would have done the similar thing?
I think they probably would have pushed to do a similar thing, but at first, because we were in transition, we used to have different roles.
Yeah.
It was very much a touch and go type thing. We would have to work together a lot to make sure everything was going according to plan.
Yeah.
But we were able to kind of get past all that extra stuff and just streamline it.
That's great. So being a self-starter, and I would agree, if I was a supervisor and I had a student worker be very kind of, take the initiative on communication and things like that, that would be exactly what I would want to have happened. So that's a great way of dealing with that. So someone else in the back here, maybe over here, a situation that came up at work that you had to deal with that you think your manager might have handled differently? Anyone? Yeah, go ahead.
So I used to work at the registrar's office, and I would process student transcripts and I would take phone calls. And it was a constant situation where students would like yell at you on the phone calls, and I did.
Oh no.
I don't have the patience, and like it makes me like a little sad. So my direct manager and my coworker who I used to work with would take the phone calls for me, and I would just process the transcripts. End result, I ended up quitting.
Okay.
And I found 2 jobs that were more suited for me.
Okay.
Stop laughing at me.
Got it. So in that case, you had a difficult situation and you found out the best solution was just to find a new job that was more suited to your interests and what you wanted to do. Is that correct? And in that situation, you were handing off all the phone calls to your manager to deal with. If someone was in your role who wanted to pursue that type of role, they might try to take those phone calls themselves so that their manager has less stuff to deal with, right? But in this case, because the role wasn't right for you, you went off and did something else, which is totally cool. But just kind of understanding that difference of taking on the difficult things versus giving them to your manager is what sets people apart. But of course, in your situation, I think you did the right thing, which is finding a role. And what are you doing right now?
Student government and peer ambassadors.
Great, okay, and you feel like it's a lot more your speed? Awesome, great. Okay, so that's just a quick example, and I have prizes for everyone who chooses to volunteer. Let me get those out. Yeah, now you guys want to raise your hand, huh? All right, there's going to be more opportunity, don't worry. Okay, so the summary is how to think like a CEO. The trick is to really deeply internalize the concept of the principal-agent problem. The principal is the business owner or your manager. The agent is yourself. You're representing the company on behalf of the principal. And the big idea here is that there's always a misalignment of incentives, which causes employees to behave differently than how the company's owners would like for their employees to do. Now, obviously, it's on companies to provide the right set of incentives, pay, a great workplace, fulfilling work so that employees actually do want to work in a way that everyone's aligned with their incentives. But short of that, there are a couple things that you can do. We talked about those mental models, ways in which you can think and behave on the job that'll really help set yourself apart at this level as student workers so that when you enter the working world after graduating, these things will just be very naturally intuitive to you and you'll really be very, very far apart from them. Okay, let's talk about mastering your personal brand. Who here has done any sort of personal brand work for themselves before? You have? What was the context of it?
Building a personal brand.
Yeah.
Well, in terms, I think, in building personal brand is pretty much how you dress, how you present yourself, and who you surround yourself with in terms of your network.
Exactly. So, personal brand is how you dress, how you present yourself, your personal network, who you choose to hang out with. Those are all correct. And so what we want to talk about today is just the idea of a personal brand. So, here's the important lesson that I learned the hard way. And I'll show you how I benefited from this and how I recently struggled because of this. Most important decisions about your career, promotions, what type of work and projects you get on, your compensation, will happen when you're not in the room. And it's really frustrating that this is the case, but that's just how life is. And so there's a couple of quotes from great leaders here. So Jeff Bezos says, your personal brand is simply what people say about you when you're not in the room. Very easy way to understand it, right? It's your reputation. Warren Buffett, really famous investor, says it takes 20 years to build a reputation and only 5 minutes to ruin it. You will do things differently if you think about this. And then Carla Harris, she's the vice president and the chairwoman of Morgan Stanley's wealth management division, very accomplished individual. She simply says, perception is the co-pilot to reality. The reality is you could be really great student workers, you could be really diligent, you could be hardworking, but if no one around you perceives that, you're on your own fantasy land. And that's a really frustrating truth for everyone to kind of recognize, particularly young professionals. It's frustrating for me that people just don't understand that I'm a hard worker. Well, why do I need to do this personal branding, this relationship building? That's just the nature of life. And so 2 stories that I have, back at my Netflix early days, I went to India in 2018 during the winter on a personal vacation, but I decided to spend a couple of days visiting the India office just out of curiosity. Spent a couple of days there, didn't think anything of it, met a couple of cool people, then came back to LA. And about a year and a half later, the head of my team randomly called me and said, hey Sahil, we have this interesting opportunity in India coming up. One of your colleagues is going on parental leave. Do you want to go fill his spot for 6 months? And I was like, whoa, like a 6-month trip to India, get to work for Netflix over there, be with family. That's really cool. How did this happen? I was like, why did you choose me? And she was like, oh, well, we heard that you had gone on a personal trip, visited the office. They're really comfortable with you. They know who you are. And I was going to ask the team, but frankly, I wanted to come to you first and see if you wanted first dibs. I was like, sure, sign me up. And it was a life-changing moment for me, spending 6 months in India. So that's where my personal brand, I made the effort to meet people, to network with people. They saw me as trustworthy. Just a couple of days in the India office gave me a life-changing opportunity. Now, here's the other side of that coin that didn't work out for me more recently. More recently, about a couple months ago, I got passed up for a promotion because we had a reorganization of our team. And long story short, I'm now working with a new set of leaders who I have not built a relationship with yet. Nothing about my performance has changed, but the relationship is not there. And I have 2 other colleagues, both of them got promoted, and I didn't. And our performance is the same, but the difference is both of those colleagues have relationships with the people that are leading our organization, and I don't. So that's kind of one of the downsides of not being into your personal brand, is it really matters what the brand is and who you're building it with. Just like from a company perspective, they have their target customer group, just like you all in the workplace, building your personal brand with the right people is more than, it is like half the equation, and the other half is doing your job really well. So I just want to communicate that there's 2 sides to doing this well and not well. I've had both happen in my life. I'm not crying about it. It's a lesson that I'm glad that I learned in my career at a relatively early stage. But it's something that I want to share with all of you, that it really matters, and these decisions are made when you're not in the room. So build that personal brand. How do you do it though? So the answer is to be really intentional about what values you want to be known for. And here I've posted just from online a couple of different values that you can assimilate with yourself. And we're going to do an exercise and refer to this later on, so I don't want you to freak out about the number of words here. But just know that these are some of the things. What's cool about a personal brand is it's personal. When we buy Nike, we don't buy it because it's a shoe. We buy it because of what it stands for. We all use iPhones or Androids or whatever, we make a conscious decision to do that. We shop at certain places, we listen to certain types of music, because these are all brands that are part of our identity. So my question to you is, what is your identity specifically in the workplace? And have you ever thought about that? And we're going to do an exercise together to kind of think about that in a second. I wanted to share, though, my values. I have 12 of them that I wrote over the summer. This might be 12 too many, but we'll see. And I just want to run through my logic of why I think these are important values for me specifically. A couple of them are integrity. This is from Warren Buffett. Any decision or behavior of mine in the workplace should be suitable on the front page of a newspaper. That to me is what integrity means. It's from Warren Buffett. I like that one, so I wanted to keep it. Joy. I get to show up to work willingly every day. I don't work for a paycheck. So the moment I'm not happy with my job as you were, I'm going to leave, right? And so that really changes your attitude about what you want out of your professional experience. Impact. I choose to work on things and with people where I can have the most impact. Here's a really cool law. It's called Price's Law. Has anyone heard of this law before? Any stats or math people in the room? In the back? Okay, cool. It's a really mind-blowing law. So it says, in any sort of organization, the square root of the number of people in that organization do half the work. That means if you have a 10-person organization, 3 people do half the work. If you have a 100-person organization, 10 people do half the work. If you have a 1,000-person organization, only 30 people do half the work. And what it means is that in any organization, incompetence scales exponentially and competence only scales linearly. And I'm sure all of you have felt this when we all do group projects. It's like there's only 1 or 2 people that do all the work and the rest kind of are freeloaders. This is true in every single organization. It's called Price's Law. And the idea is, if you're an employee, you want to be inside that square root of people that are punching above their weight. Because if not, unfortunately, with headlines going on today, even this morning, you're going to be one of the many people that are being laid off. Not again because you're a poor performer, but because you're not having the impact to justify your role. And so that's just something to keep in mind. It's a really cool law. It's called Price's Law. But I always keep that in mind whenever I'm entertaining a new job offer. And then a couple of other ones. Excellence, the quality of my work is deeply tied to my personal reputation. I seek to hold myself accountable even when others do not. What else is another good one? Selflessness. When faced with a trade-off between personal gain and the gain of my colleagues, I put others first. I don't let ego determine my actions. This will be increasingly funny to watch as you guys get older into your 20s and 30s and beyond, just to see the amount of executives and leaders in corporate America that make decisions based on their ego and not what's right for the business. Remember, principal agent problem. It's very true throughout every single level of your organization. So these are just some of my values, but what we're going to do today is do an exercise. So I'm going to go back to that slide, the pink slide with all the values, and I want you to think about, pick 3 that you think best define your personal work style and brand. Let's call it specifically in the workplace. We're not going to talk about your personal life. And I want you to think 3 that are aspirational for you. It doesn't have to be today, the 3 that you would like to be known for going forward. I want you to think about whether you'd be known for these 3 values if you were to ask your colleagues and fellow students at your jobs today. Would they agree or would they not agree? Why? Share your 3 brand attributes with your partner and brainstorm ways in which you could better live these values starting tomorrow. And then a bonus is if there's someone in your life, whether it's at school, at work, your personal life, or even in mainstream culture, some well-known CEOs or leaders that you follow that best exemplifies a value that you identify with that you can use as inspiration. So let's go ahead and take a couple minutes to do this. Again, the first step is to brainstorm from that list I'm about to show 3 values that you think you most resonate with, and then find a partner and start to brainstorm some of these things. So I'm going to go back to the pink list, and then I'm going to go back to this here so that you know what steps to take. Okay. Can everyone see that, by the way? Sorry, it's too small. Let me see if I can make it. There are 3 values that they came up with. Yeah.
Compassion, selfless, and playfulness.
Compassion, selfless, and playfulness. And do you currently have a role as a student worker?
Yes.
What is it?
I work for the Disability Resource Center.
Okay, great. And what is your typical day-to-day like? What types of things do you do?
We answer phone calls, do a lot of office work, but
Okay.
also We proctor exams, we make sure that everything is set up, or if students have any questions about accommodations or any problems with their accommodations,
Yeah.
we go ahead and take care of that. And sometimes people just need to come in and talk to us. Maybe they're having a bad day or something, so
Yeah.
that's part of our job.
Got it. Okay, so it makes sense why you chose those
Yeah.
values. How do you think you could be better at those 3 values starting tomorrow? If that's really the brand you wanted to put out there about yourself.
I think in terms of playfulness, I feel like I'm playful with people who I work with. So I can do a better job at kind of putting it out there more and share it with everybody else.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of tension, not only on this campus, but on campuses in general. You have people yelling at you, poor thing. So I think a little bit of playfulness, especially for those of you that are on the phone, a little bit of selflessness, compassion, I think can really help set people apart. And so that's great. A big round of applause. I also have applause. It's my favorite pen.
Thank you.
All right. I would ask for more volunteers, but I want to keep us on time, so go ahead and. Okay. So basically, we learned that a personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. We learned from Warren Buffett that, it's something that, it's like a piggy bank. You put a small deposit in every day, but it takes just one, mishap, one compromise of your values to smash the piggy bank, and you have to start all over with the people around you. We also learned from Carla Harris, I think it was. What was her name? Yeah, Carla Harris, yeah. We learned, perception is a co-pilot of reality. So I want you guys to understand this because it's a very painful lesson to learn later on in life. It doesn't matter how good of a worker you are. That's important, but if people around you don't know that, they're not aware of that, you're kind of in a forest on your own. That's really important. And then we also learned that, I have a list of that white slide or the pink slide. You guys can print that out, pick some values, and just experiment. That's the cool part. This week I'm going to be these 3 values. Next week I'm going to be these 3 values. And see how you show up at work until you gradually find what you think you want to be all about. I had 12 values that I've written that I brainstormed over the summer that I think really define how I show up at the workplace. You can choose however many you want to show up with. Just know that as a brand, it's really powerful when you stand for one thing or a set of things rather than a long list of everything. So focusing on a few will be key. Any questions about building your personal brand? Great. Okay, let's get into the last one, advocating for yourself through storytelling. So this one is going to be really actionable, stuff that we're going to work on together. And so here's a key concept. Your 30-second pitch is your secret weapon to make a stellar first impression. So you all are going through a journey right now, going from a place where your candidacy and the way that people judge you is moving away from test scores and GPAs, which is a hard number, and towards a more subjective world of your reputation, your work experience, your perceived skill set. There aren't numbers or boxes to put these things in. This is all about how you tell your story, and kind of what Dr. Pullman said when she said, I think she said her Chicago students were like not getting job offers because they weren't telling the right story. This is basically how that ties in. And so your ability to tell a compelling story about your prior experiences will actually be more important than worrying about what bullets to write on the resume. In fact, the best jobs and the most fun jobs are not acquired through a resume. It might be the case for an entry-level job when you guys first get set up, but gradually, beyond your 20s and 30s and even 40s, it's all about who you know and if they can connect you with the right person. So practicing a 30-second pitch is an easy way to nail a first impression with working professionals. I want to give you guys 2 examples of a 30-second pitch that I often hear from students and even people in their 20s and 30s. And I'll give you a good one and then what I think is a little bit better. Hopefully you can agree. You guys tell me what you think. Hi, my name's Sahil. I'm from San Francisco, went to school at UCLA, and I have a career in media, was in consulting for a bit, then went to Discovery Channel, and now I'm at Netflix. I've been here for 5 years, looking for something different, which is why I'm here today and interviewing. Okay, that's 1. Better than nothing, but it's still something. Number 2. Hi, my name's Sahil. I'm from San Francisco. I studied at UCLA. Started off my career in management consulting, really helping companies pivot to the direct-to-consumer world of building streaming services. Went off to Discovery Channel to help them think through that as well. And ultimately ended up at Netflix, where I really wanted to learn how is the innovating player in this space, really thinking about these complex problems of going direct to consumer, scaling orgs globally, and really building out a global content library. And after 5 years, I'm really looking for a different sort of challenge, more where I can be at the building stage rather than the managing stage. I want to get to join an entry-level company that's at its entry stage to really help build and go to market and introduce products to the marketplace. That's what really excites me, and that's why I'm here today interviewing for the role at SpaceX. Which one do you guys think is better? Second one, why? It's more clear. It shows what I've done. Anyone else?
You told a story
Told a story.
how you progressed through your experience from school
Yeah.
and then into the real world
Yeah.
and the work experience and what you did.
Yeah, exactly. So I told a story, not just a bunch of resume bullet points, like I did this, then that, and that, right? That second one, by the way, I would give myself a 6 out of 10. I can do it a lot better when I'm prepping for interviews. That got me an offer at SpaceX last month. And so this actually works, right? And it's because you package your experience in a way that is compelling for other people that they think that they can give them your skill set. Steve Jobs said it best. He said, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. And trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your God, your destiny, whatever. This approach is never let me down. I think the key part of that is you can't connect the dots looking forward. So all of you today in NSC, you're thinking about, okay, I want to do this student work, I want to get this job or whatever, take this class, but like, where is it all going? How is it all working? And it's a good question to ask, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. I would worry more so about, here's all the experience that I have, lay it on the table, how can I tell the right story or package it in a way that's compelling for the next opportunity that I want? And that's really what a 30-second pitch is about. It's telling a quick, tight story about why the other person you're talking to should be interested in you. So, here's how to do it. It's a very simple way to do it. Start with these couple of bullet points. Where are you from originally? Then talk about what are you studying at NSC and what year are you? What is your career goal after graduation? This is important to say up front. And even if you're not sure what it is, just make it up. So in my example, I didn't quite do this as well, but I would say that I'm really passionate about go-to-market strategy, launching new products into the marketplace in the consumer tech space. By saying that up front in your elevator pitch, you give the other person an idea of what you're all about. Then you can go into maybe one meaningful experience that you had. I've had a couple, so I kind of told that story, but maybe you can just pick one. What was your role? What were your responsibilities? What did you accomplish? And then what are you looking for in your next role? What type of company, what type of industry are you looking for? And then I want you to end with the specific phrase. You get to choose. Either, and so, yeah, that's my story, and it's a pleasure to meet you. Or, and yeah, that's my story, and that's why I'm here today interviewing. The reason why is because it forces you to get your 30-second pitch into the relevant space that you're in today, which is the interview room. So it forces you to tie it all down in a nice bow and really make sure that everything flows. So why don't we take a little bit, I'm going to go back to this slide, take 5 minutes to think about your 30-second pitch using the structure that we just discussed. Of course, I want you to take this presentation at home and practice it a lot more and be thoughtful about it. We're just doing an example exercise. And then take turns with your partner trying to pitch each other and give each other feedback on what they could be doing better. And then after that, I'm going to select one person, and we're actually going to do a live workshop where I'm going to workshop their answer and their pitch together, and we're going to see collectively if we can make it better. So let's go ahead and start. And again, I know you don't have pieces of paper, maybe you can use your notes app or whatever, but try to follow this structure. There is a prize involved. Would you mind coming in? Yeah. What's your name? Emmanuel. Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Sahil.
Emmanuel.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think I have a mic. It's okay. So I'm going to pretend I'm an interviewer. I'm just going to ask you to tell me about yourself, and you're going to go. And we're all going to give Emmanuel feedback on what he did well and what you think we could do better. So thanks for coming in today, Emmanuel. Why don't you tell me about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Hawaii, but I grew up here in Las Vegas. I'm a senior in Nevada State, majoring in psychology. When I graduated, I wanted to pursue a career in higher education. This past summer, I completed a recruiting internship at Amazon. I learned all about talent acquisition in the tech industry, and I successfully completed the job requisition project that I was assigned. I hope to apply what I learned there in my education and previous work experiences to entry-level student affairs positions when I graduate. And it's a pleasure to meet you.
Wow, round of applause. Very, very nice work, by the way. What did Emmanuel do correctly in that? Everything? Yes. Actually followed the structure quite well, just saying, including the words at the end. What else? Yeah. You got it.
Even though he like clearly had notes and stuff because we just started doing this, you still made like the conscious effort to look at us, and I thought that was good.
Yeah, the body language. I thought he also had a nice pace of tone, kind of like the storytelling vibe of like, this is who I am. And I know I just showed this to you like 2 minutes ago, so you'll get it internalized a little bit later on. What else?
He highlighted accomplishments, provided specific examples.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
that it was real what he was saying.
Yeah, so being very specific, right? That's the thing about personal stories, they have to be specific. Just saying, oh, I'm like an NSC student and I want to graduate and work for a company and I want to do something in business, like that doesn't mean anything, right? But he was very specific about the types of experiences that he had. Okay, now, was there anything that you guys think Emmanuel could have done better? Yeah.
Filler words like
Okay, fair enough. Filler words, more polish. Obviously, again, with more time, you'll get there. In the back.
I think the example was really great, but making a more direct connection for me to how Amazon applies to higher education.
Exactly.
Or to use like Emmanuel's like got a really like distinguished fellowship, like maybe mentioning that since you're talking about higher education or
Oh,
something
cool.
specific to.
Okay. Or just bring Phil into every interview you have. Bring you into every interview you have. That's great. That's great context. That's totally something you should mention, right? Okay, so why don't we focus on that? And actually, we're going to workshop together. And so I'm going to pick on 2 things that I think we can do better. And we're going to say the answer together at the end and see if it's a lot better. But you guys will be the judge of that. So I like the way you started. I think the Amazon experience is great because it's a big brand name. It sets yourself apart. But when you say that you want to be, you said what was your career goal up front?
Student affairs, higher education.
Student affairs, higher education. So to Phil's point, talk to me about how you think, taking the Steve Jobs quote, how can you connect the dots looking backwards in terms of how might that skill set, working at a company like Amazon, make you a better student affairs person?
Because I feel like I gained like a business mindset with
Okay.
that experience, and I feel like you can apply that to like leading a department, for example.
Okay. And so what kind of skill sets do you think you need to lead a department?
Strong interpersonal skills,
Mhm.
project management, the ability to kind of have like a vision and effectively communicate it.
Okay, so strong interpersonal skills, managing a team, having a vision, communicating it. Did you do any of those things at Amazon?
Yeah, I planned and created this newsletter that reached my entire department.
Okay,
So about like 300 people. So
okay, and what was the topic about?
it was to get engagement from recruiters to attend job fairs.
Okay, and do you know how that worked out? Did people actually attend?
Well, I don't know like the exact metrics from
Sure.
that newsletter how it impacted
Okay.
that, but I mean I could ask someone.
Okay, no, that's cool, that's cool. It was an internship, so we'll give you a pass. What I would say is, that's exactly right. So what I would say is, so I was at Amazon, I did what was it called, the program?
I made a newsletter.
No, but the program that you were in for Amazon, the internship
It
program.
was a recruiting internship.
Recruiting internship at Amazon, where I learned a lot about working in a high-performance team, high-performing environment. I learned how to have business impact, and I also learned communication. So I spearheaded a newsletter that was used to communicate to recruiters about a career fair coming up or whatever, and I really learned how to craft business communication in a way that's also compelling and gets people to attend the event. And I think as a student affairs professional, that's something that I would need to learn more about, and I'm excited to do so. That's kind of one way you could spin it. And then the second thing I want to focus on is, what type of university would you like to be a student affairs professional for? Can you tell me? Big, small, what part of the
I
country?
don't know, I feel like I could enjoy any kind of institution, maybe.
You get to pick anything
Like a
though.
major research university.
A major, so big university. What part of the country?
Staying on the Pacific coast.
Hawaii. the same Pacific Coast. So that's a fun way. The reason why I say you should start with where you're from is because oftentimes there's fun stories about your personal story that you can bring back in to help add a little bit of differentiation. So being that you're from Hawaii, I'll let you comment on how that experience was for you. But saying that, you know, you love the Pacific Ocean, you're born and brought up around it, you love the weather, you love to work for a large research university in student affairs by the Pacific Ocean. Like, see how specific that is, right? So if we can, and then that's why I'm here today. So you're tying it all up. So I'm gonna put a lot of pressure on you now. Can you think you can say your pitch again as excellently as you did with some of these tweaks in mind? And you can try. It's okay. And then use less ums because
Right.
yeah. So let's try it, and we'll be easy on Emmanuel. But let's go ahead. Thank you for coming in, and can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Emmanuel. I'm originally from Hawaii, but I grew up in Las Vegas. I'm a senior in Nevada State College, majoring in psychology. When I graduate, I want to pursue a career in higher education and student affairs. This past summer, I completed a recruiting internship with Amazon. Within my role, I created a newsletter which reached my entire department in hopes of getting more recruiters to participate in job fairs. And so I hope to apply kind of that business mentality and leading projects within a higher education role. And it's a pleasure to be.
Awesome. Round of applause. Great. So I think that was a great polish. The thing that I would add is be more specific, again, what we talked about the type of institution. That's okay. Yeah, and then maybe highlight some of your personal interests into why you want to be in student affairs. So if I can just ask you, why do you want to be in student affairs? Like, what about it excites you?
I'm really just passionate about higher education as a structure in society.
And why is that?
Because I think it can transform students' lives, and
Okay.
it's a means of economic mobility.
And has it done so for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's great. So that's really powerful, right? Like, I really want to give back and be in a position to help students have the same experience that I did at NSC by being a student affairs professional. So you can see these threads are coming together, and I think with a little bit more prep time, not on the pressure of a front stage, it'll be a stellar answer. But I would say right now, the pitch that you gave would probably blow away most of your peers, and it would definitely set yourself apart. So round of applause for Emmanuel. Yeah. Thanks again. Awesome. Phil, how are we on time? Is it?
We're close to, we should wrap up.
Okay, let's wrap up. Hopefully you can see workshopping that answer. It's bringing out the specificity, the detail, right? Making yourself really special in terms of what differentiates you from everyone else. And being very specific about what you want and why, right? So we can be as picky as large research university on the Pacific Coast and then put ourselves in environments where we're going to get to network with those type of opportunities, right? So that's how you craft your 30-second pitch. Again, you're going to have this for reference. I would encourage you to all practice it on your own. But hopefully you understand now how, if I were to meet Emmanuel for the first time and he gave that stellar of an answer, first impressions are everything. And so that just makes the interview, it makes a networking session, it makes an elevator, if you're actually doing an elevator, pitch in an elevator, I have yet to do that. It just makes the entire interaction a lot easier because you start off with such confidence that any other question they ask is a little bit easier to do. So you know what's going to be asked, you might as well knock it out of the park. Okay, so those are the 3 things that we discussed today. I want to do a quick fire quiz on each one of these 3 things to test whether or not you retain some of this stuff. You will have access to it at the end. So let's go ahead, and I do have prizes again. So for the previous slide, what did we learn about developing a CEO mindset?
You want to do what's best for the company, not specifically on a personal level.
That's right. And so what are some ways in which you think you can do that?
You would face a situation and you would look at it out of business standpoint, like how would this benefit in a long-term scale the business rather than short-term for yourself.
Exactly. So think about the principal agent problem, how incentives are very different, and think about what's best for the business long run rather than in the short term what's best for me personally. Round of applause. That's great. What did we learn about mastering your personal brand? Yeah.
I felt it really is about establishing your why.
Your why, okay?
Why are we pursuing this? Why are you interested? And then it does tie into the storytelling, but you have to know your why. I feel like that's the core
Exactly.
of, what motivates you. What's your MO? What gets you out of your bed in the morning?
Yeah.
And once you establish that, nothing is standing in your way.
Yeah.
Because then you'll go to work and say, I'm here because I want to be here,
Exactly.
not for the paycheck.
Exactly. Great answer. And if I can add, why is even having a personal brand important? Why can't I be one of a million employees at a company?
To set you apart.
Set you apart.
To say that I have something to bring to the table and it's unique.
Yeah.
I'm not on this conveyor belt conformity. I'm going to
Yeah.
break through that by
Yeah.
asking questions and being creative and have something of value to bring to the table that maybe someone else doesn't have.
Yeah, exactly. Round of applause. Perfect answer. So it's about communicating your why, what makes you different. And remember, perception is the co-pilot to reality, right? So you could be the hardest working student worker ever, but if no one is around to recognize it or if they think differently about you, you're living in a fantasy world. So make sure you're not doing that. And lastly, what do we learn about storytelling and advocating for yourself? Yeah.
So for the elevator speech, I always thought of it as you need to list these points off,
Mm-hmm.
and that was what I was told in, I think, middle school, early high school. I was with Gear Up, and they try to help teach us these ways. But what you really brought to the table was why list off bullet points? Make it personal. Are you going to remember the list, or are you going to remember your story?
Exactly.
And most likely it's going to be your story because it's more interesting. It's going to hold your attention. It's going to make that lasting impression.
Exactly. So it's all about communicating your story, those interesting personal details that are still relevant in your professional setting, but help make you a bit different than just a resume on a piece of paper, and really bringing some of that personal experience that Emmanuel was able to do about his awesome Amazon opportunity, and really kind of, and then Phil, you said that he was a fellowship recipient, right?
He's got a very, he didn't even talk about it, but he's got a very distinguished master fellowship.
Oh, great. So even bring that into the fold, right? So things that make you different. So great. Round of applause.
I'm also really comfortable.
Awesome. So I also have these tear sheets that I'm not going to go over for the sake of time. This is a first 90-day action plan that you can use starting next week to really set yourself apart. They have key activities there that you can do and kind of the goals to really be a high performer. I have another reference sheet here. These are the 11 things that you can do on the job at any time to be a high performer, and none of them have to do with actually being good at what you do. It just has to do with how you choose to show up. And I think this is a really important lesson to learn. While, of course, I'm sure that you all will get the technical skill sets eventually in your roles. I'm not worried about that. I am more concerned about how you choose to show up at work voluntarily and willingly every day. All right, so I think we're tight on time, Phil. I don't know if we want to do a separate Q&A session, or I'm happy to kind of take students' questions whenever. I'll be around.
If there's a couple like pressing questions, we can take them now. But I think, are you still able to join us for lunch? So
I can still join for lunch.
So Sahil will be with us for lunch as well. So if you have something that can wait till then, we'll do it then. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. And if I can ask one last favor, Phil, while we're rotating, if everyone can please use this scan to share me your thoughts, also your email address, so I can send you the presentation. That would be good. Otherwise, thank you guys.